Rise up, Falcons fans. It's time for another episode of Dirty Bird Talk, my Atlanta Falcons podcast. I'm your host, Goofy Man, and it's a little bit of a victory preseason Tuesday, if you want to call it that, after absolutely getting dismantled by the Denver Broncos in preseason game number 1. The Atlanta Falcons had a really nice bounce back and got a dominant 34-6 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to go over that. We're going to look ahead to the Miami Dolphins preseason game on Friday. We're going to talk about what went right for the Falcons in that Colts game. We're going to talk about potential cuts, 53-man roster, who's going to make it, position battles. We're going to go over the Monday practice. We're going to go over the Tuesday practice. We're going to go over it all. So let's get right into it, starting with the past, and that is Saturday's game against Indianapolis. Obviously, the Falcons dominated by a score of 34-6. Total yards, 461 to 164. 297 passing yards to 164 rushing, 23 first downs to the Colts 9 of 17 on third down to the Colts 1 of 11, and arguably one of the biggest things here, the Falcons only had 6 penalties for 76 yards. Now that is super impressive considering they hardly played any starters. Very impressive when you can walk away from a preseason game saying, we limited the penalty numbers, we limited the penalty yards, and overall it was a clean game, and it really was. The scoreboard shows that, and if you watch the game from start to finish, man, that was awesome. That was great. It's just good football. It's always good football to watch your team dominate, but here's a surprising stat. All those numbers that I mentioned, the Falcons and the Colts had the same number of offensive drives. Each team had 10 drives, yet the Falcons capitalized on just about every single drive in that first half for the most part, and then obviously into the second half as well. But let's go over some good individual performances, continuing talking about that Colts game. Cooper Rush, 10 of 11 passing for 86 yards. Jack Strand, 12 of 17 passing, 212 yards, 1 passing touchdown, to go along with 22 rushing yards as well as a rushing touchdown. Now, obviously, Jack Strand, as I've mentioned before, and many Falcons fans have said previously, Jack Strand looks like the guy. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but we're going to keep going. Tyler Goodson, 6 carries, 59 yards, and a touchdown. Nathan Carter, 17 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Cash Jones, 7 carries, 41 yards, 4 receptions, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Everyone was flying all over the place on offense. Everyone was getting the ball. Everyone was doing good things with it. It's just great to see. You love to see it. But moving on to the defensive side of the ball, Cameron Sample, 3 total tackles, 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits. Chris Williams, who's a fifth-year guy, kind of bounced around the league. He had a sack. James Pierce Jr., 2 total tackles, 1 pass deflection. DeMarco Hellams, 3 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Channing Tindall, 4 total tackles. The list goes on and on and on and on, both offensively and defensively. The scoreboard says 34-6, and the stat sheet is stuffed. Absolutely stuffed. Now, obviously, this was mainly your second, third, fourth string guys out here. As I mentioned, not many starters played. And speaking of that, here's the number for you. 30 is the number of players that Atlanta did not suit up for their game on Saturday against the Indianapolis Colts. That is a large number. So basically, the entire starting offense and the entire starting defense just didn't play against the Colts. And I will say it was fantastic to see all the reserves pretty much go out there and ball out. Like I said, you got guys battling for, positional battles, starting spots, second string, third string, all of the above. But defense was everywhere. Pretty much, everyone could top the list of standouts from this game when you hold a team to only 6 points. I don't care if it's the preseason, but, after that Broncos game, the entirety of social media was ready to say the Falcons are going 0-17 and they're never winning a football game ever again, and they're the absolute laughingstock of the NFL. While some of that might be true, this team has a lot to build on, and I'm really glad that they were able to showcase that against the Colts on Saturday. So time to keep moving forward. There's plenty of positives to build on. Kevin Stefanski's building something here in Atlanta. Matt Ryan's building something. They got a lot of cap space for the 2027 offseason. So I'm excited. I'm here for the ride. I'm here for this season. We'll look ahead to next season when it comes. I'm here for this season. But speaking of the positives, let's talk about the news and notes from Monday's team practice. Then we'll go over Tuesday's team practice. Then we'll kind of keep the train rolling heading into that preseason game Friday against the Miami Dolphins. But the big news, the obvious, Kevin Stefanski announced after the game on Saturday that Michael Penix Jr. is officially cleared for full team work. And with that designation, you can quote me on this, that is your quarterback one. I don't see how Tua beats him out for this starting job, quote unquote, if you even want to say it's still an open competition. Michael Penix Jr. is your quarterback one officially, now that Kevin Stefanski has cleared him for those 11-11 team drills. So that's where I stand. I'm obviously a big Michael Penix Jr. guy, but for the first time in his road to recovery from a season-ending knee injury last season, he participated in full teamwork during Monday's practice. Kevin Stefanski said, 11-11 is the closest approximation to football. Those preseason games are games, and they're keeping score, but certainly 11-11 is the closest thing we have to what we do in the fall. So it's a big step for Mike, and he's excited for it. I'm excited for it. I think Michael Penix Jr. is going to do great things. He's just had a lot of unfortunate luck. I mean, you could break down pretty much the number of times either the special teams or defense has sold his really good potential game-winning drives, but I'm not even going to get into that because that's in the past. I'm just excited for his future in this season being the starter quarterback of your Atlanta Falcons. But biggest standout from Penix's return, kind of go over it right now because this happened in Monday's practice, but both Tua and Penix each had 6 plays apiece with the first team offense before both the offense and defensive units split up to end the practice during a walkthrough session. But during this, Tua had just 1 attempt through his 6 plays, an incompletion to Drake London. He scrambled on 2 dropbacks and handed the ball off 3 separate times. Michael Penix Jr., however, went 3 of 4 when he rotated in with the first team, hitting Kyle Pitts over the middle of the field and then checking it down to Pitts a couple of plays later. Now, this is going to be probably that video you've seen a couple of times that I'm about to talk about, or at least if you haven't seen it, you should watch it because it's absolutely beautiful. But Michael Penix Jr. delivered an absolute dot to Drake London in which he perfectly placed the ball over A.J. Terrell and hit Drake London right in stride. That's my quarterback one. I know Jack Strand is there, and ultimately we kind of want him to be the Tom Brady of the franchise moving forward, undrafted guy from, Wisconsin, went to school in Minnesota. It's like, yeah, he's awesome. He looks great in preseason, but Penix is going to be quarterback one until otherwise shown and stated. And I love that he's already kind of coming back and looking really good. We don't want another week 1 Kirk Cousins situation in which it looks like the guy has 2 broken ankles out there. I think Michael Penix Jr. is not going to be like that. I know he's mainly a pocket passer. He's not going to usually take off and run the ball, although he did week 1 against Tampa last year. But I'm excited for Penix. I think he's going to have decent mobility, even with all of his injuries and the ACL and everything. So I'm really, really glad Michael Penix Jr.'s return to full 11-on-11 team drills. So welcome back, Michael Penix Jr. Here's a quote from Kevin Stefanski. I think Mike takes great comfort in knowing he's done everything in his power to get his body ready. Now we will just continue along the process. This is day 1 of 11-on-11 for him. First time being out there in the team drills. We'll get through today and then check in and see how he's feeling and make a plan for tomorrow. Obviously referencing today, which is Tuesday. So heck yeah. I'm glad he looks good. I'm glad he's feeling good. But let's kind of go over who practiced and didn't practice on Monday. Cornerback Avion Terrell is back. However, he was not seen participating in those team periods. Both Braylon Trice and LaCale London returned to practice. Trice was seen during team periods. However, he was wearing the non-contact yellow jersey. And then the new guy, defensive end, Zadarius Smith, participated in individual drills, but was also not a part of those team reps just quite yet. And let's go ahead and go over some guys who didn't practice on the other side. Defensive lineman Deshaun Hand and offensive lineman Kyle Hinton were both out of practice. Remember that Kyle Hinton left Saturday's game against the Colts with that injury, so hope he's doing okay. Good depth, decent depth down on that offensive line. Jesse Bates also continues to be out of team periods, which is quite unfortunate. Obviously, one of the best safeties in the league, paired alongside Xavier Watts, one of the best safety duos in the entire league, period. Speaking of Xavier Watts, both him and DeMarco Helms are kind of just filling in his place, balling out at that safety position while he is out. But moving on to Tuesday, let's kind of go over some news and notes from the practice that happened today on Tuesday, August 25th. But before we can move forward, we got to look back. And the stud of Saturday's preseason game against the Colts, Tyler Goodson, man, shout out to Tyler Goodson. Just absolutely showing up and balling out and doing what he's supposed to do, both on offense and on special teams. He's just a guy who can ball. He's really just a guy who can ball. This is a quote. Tyler has been doing a great job for us on special teams. Special teams coordinator Craig Ackerman said Tuesday. After he got done scoring the touchdown, he ran directly to me and said, "Coach, I'm still on kickoff." That's the type of guy he is, the professionalism that he uses. I mean, that stuff is awesome. And I agree, that stuff is awesome. Tyler Goodson is going to be a valuable asset for the Falcons at the running back position as well as on special teams. I really hope that they keep him on the 53-man roster, the active 53-man roster that is, and he actually gets some meaningful playing time because I think he's a guy who can provide a spark. Maybe if Brian Robinson Jr. isn't killing it as RB2, Goodson can step in, provide a nice little boost. So we'll see. Definitely want to have him on that active 53-man moving forward. But some more news and notes coming from Falcons reporter Will McFadden. Avion Terrell, once again, practiced for the second straight day in a row after missing some time with his injury. He also logged his first work and full team periods today, so let's go. That's big for him. And obviously he didn't do that yesterday on Monday, but glad to see Avion Terrell is out there putting in work with the full team. But defensive end Braylon Trice and defensive lineman LaCale London, as previously mentioned yesterday, they were back out there for the second consecutive day of work. And of course, Kyle Hinton did miss his second straight practice, like I said, dealing with that injury from the Colts preseason game. More positives, though, Kendall Daniels is absolutely balling out. He's just continuing to look like a stud and show why that, he essentially deserves to be a starting linebacker on this team. So apparently he would have gotten home on a couple blitzes in a live game situation. He's extremely versatile as a pass rusher. Does it remind you of anyone? A guy that, is that linebacker / pass rusher guy? Yeah, he reminds you a lot of Jalen Walker. And if we can get anything close to Jalen Walker level of production from Kendall Daniels, oh yeah, we're looking at a very, very, very scary guy and a very scary linebacking core with Daniels, Diablo, Harris, Tyndall, everyone. Harold Perkins, everyone included. Linebacker, studs, all of them, love them. But he also had a good pass breakup over the middle of the field on a throw to Drake London, and of course had to let out a scream afterwards. But speaking of that, Kevin Stefanski on Kendall Daniels. He's a vocal guy, and he's just being himself, and that's what I love and what we appreciate about our guys. We just want everybody to be themselves. If that's who you are, be loud, talk to the defense or talk to the offense if you want. He's just being himself, and that's how I think our guys feed off of his energy. Well, I love the energy. Kendall Daniels is a beast, absolute steal of a pick. I hope that everything that we've been reading about and seeing about him in this preseason in camp is 100% the truth during the regular season, because what more could you possibly ask for? This guy's awesome, and, shout out Kevin Stefanski. Let the guys ball. Let the guys do what they got to do, be themselves. Absolutely love it. Excited for this season. I know a lot of people are going to be down on this season just because some things look bleak and grim in the quarterback position, but I'm very excited for Falcons football. How can you not be as a Falcons fan? So let's go ahead and look ahead to that final preseason game against the Miami Dolphins. We're going to go over the depth chart, and then ultimately we're going to kind of look at some position battles, talk about some guys potentially trying to make that 53-man roster, but that's what it's all about. That's what the third and final preseason game is all about. You got guys competing, battling, trying to make a roster spot, either in Atlanta or on another NFL team. But Falcons actually just released their official depth chart as of quite literally not even 2 hours ago on this Tuesday, August 25th. So let's go over that depth chart, and then we'll kind of talk about some positional battles, guys to watch for heading into Friday against the Miami Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium. But starting with the offense, going to kind of list the starter and then the reserve right behind. Wide receiver, Drake London, Chris Blair. Left tackle, Jake Matthews, Wanya Morris. Left guard, Matthew Bergeron, Kyle Hinton. Center, Ryan Newsel, Corey Levin. Right guard, Chris Lindstrom, Cam Dewberry. Right tackle, Jawan Taylor, Michael Jarrell. Tight end, Kyle Pitts, Austin Hooper. Tight end, Charlie Warner, Joshua Simon. Running back, Bijan Robinson, Brian Robinson Jr., Tyler Goodson. Quarterback, it's listed as Tua or Michael Penix Jr., with Cooper Rush as the backup and Jack Strand in that third spot. Wide receiver, Olamide Zaccheaus, Zachariah Branch. Wide receiver, Jahan Dotson, Dylan Drummond. That's the offense. I didn't go into the further reserves of those third and fourth strings. However, there still is those position battles to watch for, like I talked about in the previous episodes. That fifth receiver spot, a couple names I guess to keep an eye on would be Antoine Wells Jr., Bo Collins, Vinny Anthony, Dylan Drummond. There's guys to keep an eye on. I'm kind of low-key rooting for Vinny Anthony. I think just like Tyler Goodson, he provides that little spark on the offense, just like he does in special teams. I've loved what I've seen from Vinny Anthony II as a returner, but that's just one of the few positions. There's a bunch of guys battling for. You could throw in tight end as well with Joshua Simon, Jack Velling, Nick Muse. There's a lot of positions, but ultimately you just want to see these guys compete, play their hardest, and then at the end of the day, see if they make that active 53-man roster. But let's go ahead and talk about the defense now. I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to list the starter as well as the backup. But defensive end, Cameron Thomas, Azeez Ojulari. Defensive line, Mason Smith, Zach Harrison. Defensive line, Deshaun Hand, Devonsha Maxwell. Defensive line, LaCale London, Chris Williams. Defensive end, Brandon Dorlus, Samson Ebukam. Interior linebacker, Divine Diablo, Kendall Daniels. Interior linebacker, Christian Harris, Harold Perkins Jr. Cornerback, A.J. Terrell Jr., C.J. Henderson. Safety, Jesse Bates, DeMarco Helms. Safety, Xavier Watts, Sidney Brown. Cornerback, Mike Hughes, Clark Phillips III. Nickel, Darnay Holmes, Avion Terrell. And I'll go ahead and just list the special teams before I go back and talk on the defense. But obviously, Nick Folk at kicker, Jake Bailey at punter, Liam McCullough at long snapper. Kick returners listed as Brian Robinson Jr. Punt returner, of course, Zachariah Branch. Tyler Goodson, however, is listed as a backup kick returner, and Olamide Zaccheaus as that backup punt returner. Going back to the defense, though, just like I mentioned about battling for that, fifth wide receiver spot, I still feel like there's going to be some heavy competition deep in that secondary. Whether it comes down to the safety position, the nickel position, the cornerback 2 or 3 position. I mean, there's guys to watch for. I mean, you got A.J. Terrell and you got Mike Hughes listed as your 1 and 2, but, why can't C.J. Henderson or Clark Phillips, step up and steal that cornerback 2 spot for Mike Hughes? I just think that there's a lot of intriguing things. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces with this Falcons offense and defense, and ultimately I'm excited to, continue diving into it, continue watching it. Friday against the Miami Dolphins, and ultimately week 1 at Pittsburgh. I think that this team will be ready to play. I don't think Kevin Stefanski is a just wing it, we'll see what happens kind of guy. He's going to go in with the plan, and ultimately I trust his plan. I trust Matt Ryan's vision for this team in the future. I could just be a delusional Falcons fan. I mean, I know I am a delusional Falcons fan, but this team, there's a lot to be excited about. There really is. I know a lot of guys are on 1-year deals. However, ultimately, you just have to hope that a guy like Michael Penix Jr. or Jack Strand is going to be your quarterback for the next 10 years. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for Falcons football. I'll be there in week 1 at Pittsburgh. So first and foremost, if you're going to be there, come say hi. Dirty Bird Nation, what's up? So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. But I think in terms of moving to that Friday night game at Miami, Falcons versus the Dolphins, here's a couple of guys to kind of keep an eye on and just watch as, they try to make that 53-man roster. Like I said, there's going to be position battles kind of all over the place, and I've already talked about the secondary. I've talked about wide receiver, the third running back, but we're going to talk about the defensive line. I'm going to give you some names to watch for Friday night on that defensive line at Miami. So, newly signed Eric Johnson II, Chris Williams, Devonsha Maxwell, and Carlos Allen Jr. So all of these guys have really, made a strong case for that final 53-man roster spot. I think it was kind of hard not to against the Colts on Saturday. Everyone was just having a field day out there. But ultimately, yeah, I think it's, certainly you would think one of those guys is going to crack the 53-man roster. So Let me know what you think. Let me also know what you think about the secondary, cornerback 2, cornerback 3, deeper into the safety position, interior D-line, wide receiver, you name it. I want to discuss. I want to talk. But before we leave, you didn't think I could forget mail time. Let's get into it. Gonna kind of just do it rapid fire style here, but 3 questions / statements, and I want to hear from you. It's mail time. Time to hear from you. What excites you the most about week 1 at Pittsburgh against the Steelers? Historically, the Falcons have been terrible against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but what gets you excited about that week 1 matchup in Pittsburgh? Second question, who is your offensive and defensive MVPs for the Falcons this season in 2026? And lastly, tell me why you think the Falcons will win the NFC South. Even if you're sitting there saying, we're going 2-15 and getting the first, second, or third pick, that's fine. If you have any hope or any belief for the Falcons to win this division, tell me why. I want to hear about it. Let's talk about it.